Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and in this video what I want to do, let me just remove this YouTube thing from here, remove that from the previous video, but what I want to do today is create a plain vanilla JS front end for the to-dos API that I created a few, well, at this point it would be like several weeks ago, video-wise. Even though to me it's like a couple days ago, for you guys, if you're watching this when they premiere, it's a few weeks ago. So my zero to deploy express Mongo video, I built a to-dos API. And I built a React front end in a previous video. What I want to do today is build a plain vanilla JS. So basically I am gonna use like Vite as a build tool, so I'm not gonna use just like a HTML file with a JavaScript file attached to it, but for the most part it's just gonna be raw JavaScript. So let me set that up. Okay. So let's see how we would have done that. So first let me get the API going. So I'm going to open this up here, open folder and terminal, and let's do a npm run, actually just npm start, because I don't need it to be in dev mode. I'm not really going to be making any adjustments to the server. Okay, so now that the server is running, let's generate a new plain vanilla project. So I'm going to create another terminal. Do an npm init vite, and we're just say plain vanilla front, vanilla. Now this pretty much leads to like infinite possibilities. We could really do whatever we want here, but let's see how we approach it. We may have to try things, refactor them. I'm not going into this necessarily with like a particular plan. Okay, so let's go into the folder, cd plain, and let's do an npm run dev. Oh, I gotta do an npm install first. Okay, then do an npm run dev, and then we can go to localhost 8000 or 3000. Cool. So let's take a look at how this particular template works. That'd be in the main.js. And basically, yeah, it's just plain vanilla JS. That's what it is. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is then I'm going to lean a little bit more heavily on the HTML file than just this div here. So what I'm going to want is I want an h1. Just basically says Alex's to-do app. Okay, and there we go, Alex's to-do app. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to want all the API data to show up within this main tag. Okay, and then right above it we'll have a div for the form that will eventually be there. So we're going to just give it an ID of form. And there's only going to be one main tag, so I don't necessarily need to give a unique identifier for that. And I think that'll suit my needs at the moment. So first things first, we want to go get the API data. Okay, well, first let's just get this where it's not erroring anymore. So let me go over to the main.js and just eliminate this. I don't need this anymore. There we go. So first thing I want to do is get the API data. So for that, I'm just going to create a function. Okay, const. Here's what I am going to do, just to kind of keep the code a little bit more manageable. I'm going to create a file for helper functions. Okay, so new file. We'll say utilities.js. Okay. Okay, so we're going to have a object for state, so const state equals this object here. Okay, and then generally you always want to predefine the properties you expect to have. So I'm going to expect that there's going to be the list of to-dos, which will be an empty array for now. So that's later on we are going to have to be able to like select which of the things we're editing. Okay. Will that be necessary? Well, we'll come back to that. We can always edit it afterwards. Okay. So there's the state, and I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to export the state per se. Everything else will be exported through here. So first I'm going to do something that, a function that is going to go get the API data. So const get to-dos equals an async function. I don't need to pass it anything. And all I really want to do is const response equals await fetch, and again the URL. Although what I will do is I will create another variable for the URL. Const URL equals http://localhost 10,000 /todos. Okay, just again clean things up, and I'll be using that URL a whole bunch throughout this. So I have my state, my URL, and then I'm going to just say const data equals await response.json, and then we'll just basically store those to-dos in the state. Const to-dos cool, const to-dos const state dot to-dos equals the data. Oh, but yeah, I don't need the const, that's the issue. The variable's already been declared. Good. Now I want to render the to-dos. So I'm going to want to create a function that renders the to-dos. So const render to-dos equals. Okay, and let me think about that. Do I want to make that? That's fine. So what this will do, doesn't need that because just everything's just going to pull data from the state, so that's fine. Not necessarily the most pure functional way of doing it, but this is the way I'll do it. Okay, and I do want to make sure that I have a variable for those elements. So const the main tag is going to equal document query selector the main tag. So I got the main tag saved in a variable, and const the div with the form. I may not necessarily need that div in there. When we build out the form, we'll get there. Okay. So I got the main tag in an element, and what's going to happen here is anytime that I want to render the to-dos, it is going to say, what it's going to do is say const HTML equals, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to map over the to-dos, state.todos, and for each to-do, what I want to do is generate some HTML. Okay, so I want to generate a div. Okay, I will give it a class just so we can style it later. A class of to-do. And in that, I'm using template literals. So I'll say I'm using the backtick, so I can use interpolation, give it that sort of React feel. Then what I'm going to do is say h1 reminder, and then here's going to inject the, because again the to-dos, if I go back to the models, the to-dos again they have two properties, reminder and completed. Okay, so h1, I want to have the to-do dot reminder. Okay, and so that's going to map, that's going to generate this string for each to-do that's in the list. But the problem is I want the array that's returned to me with all those strings, I'm going to want to use that, but I want it not to be an array. I want it to be just one giant string of HTML. So what I'm going to do is do a dot join and join it with that like that, so that way there's no commas in between them. Okay, so that's good. So this ends up being this big giant HTML string. Okay, with all these divs. So then what I can do is I can take the main tag, main.inner HTML equals HTML. Okay, I'm just going to re-render that. Okay, and ta-da. So now both of these functions I'm going to want to export. Actually, no, I don't need to export this one because I can just run this right after I set the to-dos and do render to-dos. Okay, and then I really only need to export this. Okay, cool. So now what I'm going to do is export that and then go back to my main.js and import. So far all I want is get to-dos from /utilities. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run get to-dos to kick things off. Okay, and let's see here. It doesn't look like that kind of got me the results I wanted, so let's find out why. Get to-dos. Did it even make the API call? So let's take a look here. Do I see an API call for to-dos? There's to-dos. Getting a 400 error. Question is now why? Okay, I'm not getting a 404. I'm getting a 500, which would tell me that the server is not running. So let me go back to the other terminal. Here we go. Converting circular structure, starting at object with constructor socket. Okay, so see, like it's not connecting to Mongo. Oh, and that's right, because I said a temporary user when I did that tutorial. So I need to fix that. Okay. Although I do have like my local Mongo server up and running, so let me just switch that over. So let me head over to the Express server and go to the .env file, and I'm just gonna get rid of pop this out and change this to Mongo db plus serve / localhost 27017 / to-dos. And let me restart that server, see if that makes a difference. No, I don't think I gave it the right name, so let's just do it the way I'm used to doing it. Yep, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so we are connected. That is fine and good to go. Let me add a few to-dos. Using Insomnia. So I'm going to copy this. So I got that there. So I can create lots of to-dos. Okay, and I am going to just pop out all these IDs. I just want the raw to-dos. Okay, let's make a post request. Let's see if this make my to-dos. Where did I make a mistake? Oh, I think it's all these hanging commas. There we go. Let's try that again. And there we go. Okay, so good. We added some to-dos. Cool. Okay, so now let's go back to the site. Okay, let's take a look. This time it did successfully make the API call. And I did get the data in response. So that's good. But I'm still not seeing anything on the screen. So let's see why. State.todos is not a function. Oh, okay, so let's see what I did. Utilities, where did I invoke state to-dos? On line 9. Oh, oops, supposed to be to-dos.map. And there you go. Okay, so there's all my to-dos. Okay, I probably don't want that to be an H1. Let's make this an H3. There we go. Eat your vegetables, brush your teeth, eat your lunch, eat breakfast. Okay, so just to kind of restate the flow so far, what's happening is the minute the page loads, this function's being run. what this function does, it makes the API call and then invokes this render to-dos function, and this render to-dos function then renders the to-dos from the state onto the page. Wonderful. So we can now see the to-dos. Next thing we'd want to do is be able to add a to-do. So for that, I need to add the form onto the page. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want to add like an H2. This is like, add or edit to-dos. Okay, so I'm going to just use one form for both. I'm not going to try to simulate extra page, like multiple pages like I could with like React Router. I could, but the implementation will take a little bit longer. So it's like, okay, I want to keep this video reasonable, so we're just going to have a form on the page. Okay, so we're going to have an input. Well, first we need to have our form tag. So our form tag, okay, and that's fine. It's going to be the only form tag. Then we're going to have an input of type equals text. Okay, and input, let's use some emit type equals checkbox. Okay, and then I want to submit button, input of type equals submit. Okay, cool. We'll add other properties as we need to. Okay, cool. So there's my form. So what I want to do is be able to track whether we're using this form to add or edit. So I'm going to use my state to do that. So I'm going to, by default, we're going to say that the action is to create a new thing. Okay, just to make life a little bit easier. So that way I can use this form for editing or creating. Cool. So new. So then I'm going to create a function for when the form gets submitted. So export handle submit, export const handle submit. We'll say handle form submit just to be, it doesn't matter. There's nothing else that you're going to be submitting. Handle submit equals yeah, I think it's fine because I'll just be using state. Okay, and then I do need to get those form elements in their own variables. So I'm going to say const. I want const main to be const main. Let me think about that. Not const main. Const text equals document dot query selector, and that's going to be, I want the input with the type that equals text. That's what I want. Then I'm going to want that checkbox as well. So let's just do this thing. Okay. And I might as well get the submit button. We'll get back to that. Okay. So what I want to happen is that whenever you click the button, I want to get const, basically create a new variable called text val, meaning the text value, which is just going to equal the text input dot value. Then we're going to do const checkbox or check val, which will just be checkbox dot value. So that way I have those two pieces of information. Okay. And what I'm going to do is say if state dot action if state dot action equals new, we have one scenario. And then if state dot action equals edit, it's a different scenario. Okay. So, cool. So if it's this, and now let's make this an async function, so async things can happen. Okay, if that is the case, then what we're going to do is we're going to want to create a new to-do. So that's going to be const, well, I don't even need to do that, await fetch, that's going to be URL, and then we have to pass in the second object, so we're going to have to say like method, it's a post request, because we're making a post request to our API. And if you're not sure what I mean by post request, then I recommend watching the Zero the Deploy API video where I build the API, so you know what I'm talking about with how the API works. And I'll link the video in the video description along with the React front end build so you can compare. Method. Okay, so let's see here. Method post. Now we need a content type. Well, we need headers because we need to tell it that we're sending it over JSON. So content type is application JSON. And then after that, we need to send over the body, which will be JSON. We always have to do stringify the body, turn it to a JSON string. But we're going to do an object with the text val as a reminder. So reminder will equal text val. And actually, I don't want the checkbox value now that I think about it. What I want actually is checkbox.getAttribute, and it should be checked. This is what I want to get. Okay, and then the completed property is going to equal the checkbox value. Okie dokie. And just to make sure that I'm getting like the right information, I'm just going to console.log this real quick. Text val and check val. Just want to see that those are what I think they are. But essentially, after this makes the post request, I'm going to want to do a get to dos again. So that way it updates the screen. So essentially, that's what I wanted to do there. I also going to want to zero out the form. So we're going to do a text.value equals blah, a checkbox dot set attribute checked is going to be set back to false. Okay, and that way that the form is just basically empty again. And let's see here. Okay, I exported that function. So I'm going to go back to main. I'm going to import handle submit. And what I want to do is attach that to the form. So document dot query selector form. And then we're going to want to add an event listener to that form. Add event listener and say, hey, when the form is submitted, we are going to run handle submit. Okay, now that I'm thinking about it, I also need to add. So this is really going to need to take in the event. And I need to make sure I do prevent default. So that way it doesn't refresh the page every time I try to submit the form. Okay, cool. So let's see here. Let's see here. Let's say eat snacks. Okay, eat snacks. No. Did it add it? It did add eat snacks. Only issue is that was no. And then it changed that to false. That's weird. Okay, set attribute checked. Okay, so let's do this. Getting the checked. Actually, let me check one other thing. Let's console.log checkbox.check. See if that's actually a thing. Okay, let's put some gibberish here. Check the checkbox, submit. Ah, okay, so there it is checked. Okay, there is a property called checked, and that's what I want. Okay, so it's really checkbox.checked. So they gave it a whole separate property. Wow. Okay, so that's fine. Checkbox.checked. So that means over here I want checkbox.checked to equal false. Okay, let's do some gibberish. Hit this thing, hit submit. Okay, cool. Okay. Now we're going to want some sort of marker that something is done or complete. So let me go back to my utilities here. And what I'm going to want to do is in the H3, I'm going to have an interpolation. So $ whatnot. I'm going to just say if to do dot completed. So if it's true, what I want to want here is class equals checked. And if it isn't, nothing. Okay. So some of these should have a class of equal checked. So to make that visible, let's just say class of checked. And that's checked, not checked. So checked. And I will say text decoration. And we'll put a line through it. And see, these two are true, so they have the lines to them because we've completed them. Okay, so cool. That's neat. Okay. So we're able to add a to-do. Now we want to be able to edit a to-do. So what I want to make it is that when you click on one of these to-dos, okay, whenever you click on one of these to-dos, it is going to send over some information. So that is going to be a little bit trickier because of the way I did this. Because I didn't append them one at a time, I just made sort of one big blotch of text. I could refactor it and then do it through as a loop, which would be fine. Or what I could do, just to let's have some fun with it. Let's take on this challenge. What I'm going to do? Oh, actually, I have the perfect solution. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take as an attribute. We'll say ID is going to equal the to-do.id underscore ID property. Okay, and then we'll just create some custom properties just to kind of store the information in the element. So completed equals to-do.completed, and then the text is the text, so I can grab the text. Okay, so now if I look at the elements in here, so I go to the main, okay, and I take a look at all these. See, the H3s, they have the ID. Okay, they are all completed false. You know, I can grab that information from there. So theoretically, if we click on the H3s, we will do that. So we're going to add that event listener to all the H3s. Okay, so I'm just going to do it one fell swoop. How am I going to do that? Okay, well, let's watch. Export const. Okay, handle H1 click. Or I'll just say handle. Oh, is there any other clicks? No, that's the only click. Okay, so handle click. I don't need this to be asynchronous. Okay. And first off, let's just get the event object. Export. Oh, no, event. And then we're going to console log event for a second. I just want to figure out a few things first. And then let's go back over here to main.js. And what I am going to do is just say document dot add event listener. So we're going to add it to the whole document. So that means anywhere in the screen you click, it's going to trigger an event. Okay? Which is fine. Having one function that triggers is better than having like a bunch of different functions defined with slight variation. So it can be slightly more efficient, but if people start clicking random places, you're just firing off, you know, there's trade-offs. Let me just bring in handle click from the other file. Then I'm going to bring in a handle click here. Let's go to my console. So let's see here. If I click here, okay, see I get this pointer event, and here, particularly what I want to look for is like what I clicked on. So target, there's the main tag. So I'm clicking within the main tag. Now if I were to click on brush your teeth, what would it say? Will it say the H1? That's what that's what I care about. So the target is here. This target is the H3. Good. Now if that's right, they're H3s. Now if I go down, I just want the text H3 somewhere that I can use for comparison purposes. There it is, the local name. So that's what I'm going to use to check. Like I only want to really do this if they clicked on an H3, which is going to be one of these things. They're the only H3s on the screen. So now we know we have that information. So then what we need to do is say, so again, that's event.target.localName. So if event.target.localName equals H3, then I want you to do all the following. And what's going to be the following? What you're going to do is you're going to take the text, you're going to take the text input value, because again we see the variable called text, and that's going to end up equaling the event.target's inner HTML. Okay. And then we're going to say take the event.target. Well, actually, first we want to take the checkbox.checked. Okay. And actually, I don't even think I need this property per se. Because if it either has a class or it doesn't, but that's going to be backwards. H3 class checked. Okay. It's escaping me how I can like check if class is on element. I know there's like an easier way to do this than the way I'm thinking. There we go. I think I saw it. Element.classlist.contains. Okay, good. That's all I want. Yay for Google. So checkbox.text. So what I want it to equal is not event.target.classlist.contains checked. So basically, if the class is not there, then it's true because that means it's not checked, and vice versa. Okay. And then the last thing I want is to change state.action to edit. Okay. So let's just try to click on one of these. Okay. See, that one should have came up as checked. If I click on this one, see, that one comes up as checked and it shouldn't. So maybe I have this backwards. Okay. Yeah, that works better. Okay, good. So see, that does what all I wanted to do. Is just saying if it's an if I click on anything else, it doesn't change. Oh, well, I guess because the H3s stretch across the screen, so that kind of works, but that's fine. I'm not going to nitpick on that right now. Cool. So now that we've done that, so I got it where I can select which one I want to edit, I need to make it where if I submit this button, it'll edit. So now in this case, if state.action is edit, I'm going to just kind of copy this from over here. Okay, and actually one other thing I want to save in there, state.target ID. So this is going to be the ID of the last one I clicked on. State should equal event.target.get attribute. Or actually, I think ID is its own property. Okay. So we'll just go with that first. Okay. But I'm going to copy this, except now it's going to be a put request. In the URL, we have to add / then the ID, so it should be state.id. That all worked out the way I wanted it to. And then we're going to stringify, reminder, that's fine as well. Text value resets the form, except the only difference is that when I reset the form, I also want to reset state.action to new. So that way, if you want to create a new thing, you can create a new thing after you're done editing. Okay, and then that should do it. That should do it. So let's see here. If I want to brush your teeth and then mark that as complete, I hit submit. And see, it changed. It updated it. Yay, it worked. So if I want to, but let's say I said eat your vegetables and I want to uncheck it. And it unchecked it. So it works. Huzzah. Okay. Now what I want to do is create a button, because we need a delete button, delete them. So I'm going to add that in here, and that should be after the H3s. So then we'll add a button with the ID of delete, not the ID because that's not going to be unique, a class of delete. And then these buttons will just say delete. Okay. So when you click that button, you're not clicking on the H3 technically, so it won't affect that. So essentially, I probably want to just do the same thing. I don't need to make any new functions. I'm just going to change my handle click and just do another check. So before I do that, though, I just need to double check. Can I check for element and class? So console.log the event again. Okay, so let me just see if there's anything that makes it easy to compare. Delete. Okay. Let's see here. Let's look for target. Source element. See, that's just the element. Target. Do they have that as a string? Class name. Delete. And I could do a double query. I just want to see if they have actually like. Parent node. Yeah, it doesn't have anything that's like a string. So I'll have to check both things separately. Brr. Okay. So essentially what I have to do is do this. If event.target.localName equals button, but not just any button, because there's a submit button, theoretically, even though that's technically, well, it's an input element. But just to be 100% sure, event.target.classlist.contains okay, contains deleted, or delete, I think that's what I said, delete, that's the class, good, delete, then that, it'll do it. Now let's just confirm that that's going to work. Console.log, you clicked delete. Okay, let's see here. You click delete. Good. Okay, that works. But then if I click over here, okay, it doesn't click delete. Okay, that makes me happy. That's what I want. Get rid of this console log. Okay, but as you can see here, like, this all works, but it's a little like all over the place in a sense. Like there isn't really like a central methodology here. I mean, I'm just kind of winging this as I go. It's not a bad way of doing it. Like, this is probably like faster. Like, if I were, this is going to end up being faster than if I had done it in React, Vue, Angular, Svelte, Solid. As far as like the actual end speed time, like if I had like a billion to dos, this would probably be faster because I don't have any additional abstractions on, slowing things down. But also, it's going to be like the hardest to scale and maintain because they're just really like, if I brought another new developer, I'd have to kind of walk them through all this code. And imagine like this code is like, a much more complex application. Someone's not gonna be able to walk in and just be like, yeah, I know how this was built. I know how this works. They have to study like the way it was done at this particular, in this particular instance. Although, again, I think my variables are named fairly clearly that you can kind of follow what's going on if you just read the code and didn't have my input or anything like that. Okay. But we now know that, hey, this is going to run when the delete happens. So really what all I want to do is delete the thing. Okay, but I need to get that. So we're going to give that delete the ID as well. Okay, so we're going to sit there and give the delete button the ID of the ID as well, because I need to get that ID somehow. Okay, we'll just make it a property called _ID. So that way it doesn't conflict with like the whole idea that things have to have a unique ID to do ._ID. Okay. Just because I'm going to need that to do the thing. Okay, so now when we go to handle click, I'm going to want to copy one of these. Copy this whole wait fetch thing here. So actually, technically, I am going to want this to be async. So where's my handle click? Okay. Because if it's a delete, we're going to handle that asynchronously. But instead of state that ID, what's going to happen is it's going to be, I could make this a little bit simpler. Const ID equals event.target.get attribute. And I want to get the _ID attribute. Okay, and then this will just be ID. Okay, and so you notice like I'm not transferring that to my state, so I'm not really transferring data in sort of uniform ways. Like I could have just gone the extra steps and put it in my state so that way everything kind of follows the same pattern, but I didn't. And this just makes it, again, harder code to maintain in the long run with a team because there isn't necessarily that consistency. And that's kind of the beauty of a framework, that things are going to be done sort of in the same way every time. There's sort of a method to the madness that people, even if they've never seen the code base before, they can latch on the pieces of it. But point is, so you can see how this could have been done without kind of any framework at all. Okay, so const ID event.target.attribute.id. I'm getting the thing, await fetch URL /ID, except now it's going to be a delete request. I don't need any of this. Okay, I do need a curly bracket there though. What does that lot like? So fetch URL. I think I just need to get rid of this here. Yep. Okay, so wait fetch. Let me just save this so I can organize it a little bit. Okay, handle click. So we get the ID, await fetch to the URL slash ID, so slash to do slash the ID method. I don't care about the form, none of that needs to change. I just want to get to do's afterwards, and then that should be it. Okay, so let's see if that works. Let's get rid of eat your vegetables. And it works. Haha. Okay, let's get rid of these other ones. It works. And it works pretty fast. Okay, so there we go. We built full CRUD. I did this in 45 minutes, which is actually faster than I did it with React. So I was able to actually code this out quicker. Again, me as an individual who, like, you know, I kind of like can just brute force my way through things because I'm pretty comfortable with JavaScript. Finding good, I can get it done pretty quick and it's going to run pretty fast. Where, again, using plain vanilla might become an issue in the long run is when I'm working on a larger team. And again, my code doesn't necessarily, like, well, it has, I think, good variable naming, and, you know, I formatted it somewhat kindly. It's not necessarily as organized as it could be. There isn't necessarily, like, consistent ways of doing things, you know, because I was just kind of doing whatever was sort of the easiest and sort of path of least resistance at each point, which, again, is good. It's going to mean a faster app. But the bad thing is, since there isn't that consistency, that I'm always grabbing the data from the same place, that I'm always going to kind of do things in the same patterns, it's going to make it harder for a team to, like, be like, oh, okay, so if I want to make this change, this is the way I should do it, because, you know, and not every developer, not every team member is going to necessarily feel very comfortable just being constantly creative and having to interpret the creativity of others. So that is the downside. The upsides, again, speed. And if you have really good developers who can think through, just are super creative, you can be pretty productive pretty quickly. Again, I got this done about 10 minutes faster than I did with React. The only difference is that React also had, like, routing, so we had, like, the whole page effect that you're switching pages and a couple other things. So I guess some of that time was just me sort of implementing, like, React router and things like that, which I didn't do here. So productivity may be on par. But functionality, I was able to build some functionality in less time. So, and then I didn't have to build two forms. So there's, like, a lot less HTML going on. The way I use the data, I didn't really put too much in my state. There's not too much app state in this because I did lean on being able to kind of store information through the HTML tags. So this should be pretty fast. Well, my name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Head over to the Dev Nursery and join the Slack and Discord communities if you have any, like, video suggestions you want me to do. And otherwise, I'll see you all next time. Have a great one and enjoy.